Hello, and welcome to another episode of Amateur Reality Hackers. Today, we'll be concentrating on Project AngelFire. Project AngelFire is a hacking tool set developed by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency to infiltrate computers running specifically on Microsoft Windows.
Oh, that was a weird intro, wasn't it? Oh. All right, and welcome to another episode of Amateur Reality Hackers. This is a little different, but it's more the direction things are going to be going. It's hard as hell to talk with that stupid mask on, so for anyone that didn't understand what was going on with this episode, we're going to be exploring CIA Project AngelFire. It's a deep dive into surveillance technology that the CIA has used. The Vault 7 WikiLeaks thing is kind of where this all came out. And most specifically, it's a deep dive into older technology that the CIA was using. So I'm not sure exactly when they came up with this technology, but it had to have been back in the days of Windows 7, because this thing was mainly used for Windows 7, Windows XP, and Windows Vista, which doesn't. I mean, that's not Windows 10. Think about how long we've had Windows 10 for. And I mean, the implications of that are pretty insane, because I'm not sure when Windows 7 came out. Let me look real quick. I've got notes I'm looking at for this episode anyway. 2009. So I mean, this is 15 years ago at least that they were messing with things in this particular way. Let me get back to this. So it's a part of a series of surveillance tools that was revealed in these intelligence disclosures and the WikiLeaks reports I was talking about. And essentially, it's this tool set of a series of programs that all work to spy on people's computers, transfer files onto them, take data off of them, that kind of thing. And I can imagine the kind of files they'd be adding on would be keyloggers, data siphons that are pulling, all their internet history and that kind of stuff. It was created by CIA's Engineering Development Group, which comprises a combination of core employees and third-party contractors. AngelFire is actually a project name for 6 different programs, along with a couple side apps. They're not exactly full programs; they're just kind of very unique exe files that they would use, and so they didn't get added into the full context of everything. AngelFire is it's got Solar Time, Wolf Creek, Keystone, BAD-MFs, the Windows Transitory File System, and then the other 2. Sorry about that. Someone messaged me. I'm going to close Discord. I like to do these in one shot, because if I put too much damn work into the anything except for research for the episode, I end up getting pissed off if it doesn't do well, and I would rather just enjoy things. Let's see, what was the other ones? There was stp.exe, and then wtpack.exe, and I'll go over those in a little bit. And so, dance around and all my stuff here. It was designed to modify systems covertly for surveillance and data extraction without detection. AngelFire was designed to have minimal forensic footprint and adaptability, with elements like BAD-MFs leveraging slack space. Slack space is just like the free space. So when you have 900 gigabytes on your hard drive and you've only used 800 of them, that extra 100 is considered slack space. And that's the whole point of this thing. Is it basically hides itself. I mean, we'll go into it. Each component kind of explains things a little better. So Solar Time, it modifies the partition's boot sector to load kernel code for altering Windows boot process to allow for covert operations. In layman's terms, the whole boot process is just you starting up your computer. So that's Windows starting up. So this thing interjects stuff into the special part of your hard drive that's designed for Windows startup, and then makes sure that it loads itself every single time that you turn on your computer. And so it performs heuristic checks on the operating system before loading to make sure that it's compatible with everything, and then it goes through and it injects code into the partition boot sector to initiate this custom kernel load early in the boot process. The injected code modifies the normal's window boot sequence to allow the loading of an implant drive alongside the normal boot device drives. Essentially, so that way, if they find the other components and they pull it, they still have this one piece that's an easy access that's reloading itself every time Windows boots and isn't on the main hard drive where everything else is going to be identified. That's a heck of a burp. Sorry, my daughter just burped. She's behind me. Um, Oh, my cat wants me. The specific file on disk that contains solar time and the implant driver is encrypted. It's just so that way, if someone is looking for it, it's even harder to find. Sorry about that. I had to wait until my daughter was going down for a little bit and then continue. So solar time, it modifies this boot sector. It's basically just like a preloader to make sure that every time the computer that has AngelFire on it starts up, that AngelFire can get access again if the person has, for example, deleted all their files or done anything. In theory, if you reload Windows, it would get rid of the boot sector also. So I'm not sure what the hell their plan was there. In like functionally, to have this work better, they should have put it into the splash screen for the BIOS, and then just had it load from there. But Lord knows it's not my job to go back 15 years and tell the CIA how to do their work. So then you have Wolf Creek. Wolf Creek acts as a loading driver to execute and load additional drivers and applications. Essentially, there's different levels of loading features that they have to interject. Otherwise, it's going to be too easy to identify like one core program that does all this crap, and so they have to just kind of piece their way into each section. And so it acts as a self-loading kernel driver. Kernels are like the underlying system processes for the operating system. It's self-loading, so once it's executed, it just automatically loads every other piece of crap software that it needs or any dependencies that it needs for everything else for AngelFire. It's kind of like the shader packs that you can get in video games, right? So it's just like this excess JIT that gets added in. It works in conjunction with solar time modifications to load without touching the file system directly, just to keep it from being detected. It initiates other components and applications directly into memory, making it difficult to detect and analyze using conventional methods. So it basically just goes to extents. It's not normal to hide itself and does it effectively, or did. Then there's Keystone. Keystone is responsible for starting user applications directly in memory and disguising them as legitimate service host exe processes. So at this point now, you're getting down to the layer of things that are actually going to interact with the person. And so this is where you have your hidden keyloggers and that kind of stuff, which I'm guessing is why they call it Keystone. It manages the execution of what they call user applications. This, of course, isn't applications the user is going to be interacting with, but applications that are there to just bone the user as hard as possible. And so it does everything through direct memory execution on the user side instead of through the storage space. And so instead of working on the hard drive, it just goes from wherever its like little kernel of saving is, which we'll get into in a second, and then shoots itself into the direct active RAM of the computer. And so it uses process masquerading, which ensures that all the process created appear legitimate in the system management tool. So basically what they did is they just made it spoof that it was a second copy or another piece of existing service host exe processes on the computer. There's a whole crapload of these service host processes that'll run in the background of the computer. And this one was basically just a little 200 megabyte file that would disguise itself as a genuine service host file. And so it minimized its forensic footprint by avoiding the file system interaction directly, and then also reduced its chances of detections by mimicking an existing service host down to, its core details, everything. If you tried to look at this thing, you would just think it was a part of the Windows operating system. Bad MFs. Bad MFs is a covert file system stored at the end of the active partition that has unused space. So basically, this is, again, another one that if you're looking at a hard drive and it's got terabyte, you've only used 500 gigabytes, that whole extra 500 gigabytes would become susceptible to bad MFs. And what it does is it just basically creates a whole storage system. And so it takes this free space that you have, and it has an adaptability function where it creates a storage space for all the files that the CIA is going to want on your computer to spy on you, keyloggers, etc. And I keep going back on keyloggers just because keylogging is a huge deal. It's more or less just a thing that monitors the keyboard and records every single stroke. It's how hackers will get passwords. It's how companies will spy on you with your phone. You know, you have an app on your phone and you don't really use it anymore. Odds are that if it was a free app, they were getting something out of you in some way. And so that's either your geolocation, advertising data they can sell, or even it could be down to them monitoring every single keystroke that you input into the phone by having a phone version of keylogger. And the CIA, that's they were there to find out who was doing what. So they wanted to see every single keystroke, every bit of history that was coming through the computer, everything the person searched. And the easiest way from a rudimentary perspective to do that is by having a keylogger that's just saving things to this dynamic storage space that, if you're 500 gigabytes, all of a sudden you toss it, Call of Duty and it takes up fucking 250 gigabytes because that game's awful. And your space here, the extra, what did they call it? No, anyway, this extra space at the end of your active partition shrinks. It's going to automatically adjust itself to that shrinkage. Then there was also the Windows transitory file system. This facilitates the installation and management of AngelFire components, allowing operations to leave minimal forensic evidence. So it's the thing that allows them to do that final load of all the most heinous stuff that they're actually putting on that's going to do the spying. And it was meant to work seamlessly with executable and DLL installers to deploy or retract AngelFire components, maintaining stealth in the presence of administrative privileges. Files stored in the covert file system, if large or malformed, can cause installation and execution failures. So this is, some people that were just having random computer issues. It's quite possible the CIA was looking, especially if they couldn't find any good reason for it happening. And it would allow for operators to create transitory files for specific actions, installation, modification, deletion, key logging, history taking, data retrieval, which then can be executed or reverted without trace. And so essentially it was a way not only of getting in there, taking care of what they needed to take care of, but then it was designed to have its own switch, essentially, that would go, okay, you're only here for a day, and that's all we needed to get the data that we were grabbing. Now that day's up, it's pulled off the system, it's gone. Then there was Magic Wand. Magic Wand, it was a direct memory execution program as well, kind of like what was that? Keystone, I believe. Yeah, like Keystone. And Magic Wand starts user applications directly in memory without writing the implant to the file system. This enhances in user applications. You got to remember, it's not Microsoft Word and that kind of stuff. It's the malicious user-based applications that they're adding into the system. Dog just scared the absolute crap out of me. Including matching image paths, parent process information. It basically did the same thing as the Windows transitory system, or was it BadMFs? No, it's BadMFs, where it mimics service host files, and so that's one of their big tricks. I don't know why it was one of their big tricks, but it was to make things look like these redundant Windows programs. Then there was integration with Wolf Creek with Magic Wand. So Magic Wand relies on the Wolf Creek side of things to handle kernel level operations and provide the necessary infrastructure for in-plant execution. While Wolf Creek loads the driver and manages the kernel, Magic Wand handles the user mode application execution. And so basically Wolf Creek does your back-end crap, and then Magic Wand handles the the very user level control of these programs. And so it would, what did it do? It would link itself to service exe processes and mimic them. Then it also would operate under a different Windows station, and which kind of helped it approach. So let's see I'm just going to read straight off my notes here. This approach restricts the ability of GUI applications to display interfaces, ensuring operations remain covert. So if, for example, one of the programs that you wanted to use on the person was a keylogger that someone made and had like a nice pretty GUI interface just to set things up with. This is going to hide that essentially. And so the magic wand aspect of things is that it's keeping it all magic and silent. It beyond not having GUI support, it's obviously designed to restrict any GUI access or visibility on the computer. And essentially what that means is if you have a program that has a funky GUI to it, then it's gonna screw up the program and crash the computer. And so again, you have more random computer crashes caused by this. The lack of file system interaction, except for paging, and the use of process masquerading reduces the chance of detecting it by antivirus programs or system administrators. And so again, just keeping itself as secret as possible. And so then you have basically the way it was implanting everything was with this WTPack executable, and I couldn't really find any information about it online. I was seeing it in the actual user guides for AngelFire. And from what I could tell, it appears to be a utility associated with the whole system. And it's like a command line utility to manage the lifecycle of transitory files within the whole framework. So it does quite a few things. It creates, modifies, and manages transitory files, which is just files that are. Why don't we look it up? I was pretty sure I know what the hell that was, but I don't want to guess and get it wrong. So yeah, they're just temporary files, and so the whole temporary app data type of shit, where it's just quick little files that'll pop on and pop off your computer. The official definition is transitory files are records of temporary usefulness having no ongoing value beyond an immediate minor transaction or the preparation of subsequent record. That, yeah, makes total sense. And so then after creating these transitory files, it would also update them. So it's kind of like a operator interface. And so this is where the CIA could actually get in and interject with things from what I could tell. And it allows the operator to add or modify parameters within a transitory file before it's finalized. So it's how the operator gets in there and changes things. If they only want a keylogger to go for 10 minutes or only look for a certain word or those kind of things, they could change the settings through this covert WTPack interface. It also finalizes transitory files, so it would prepare a transitory file for execution, and so it was kind of like the I don't know, the Steam Deck is a way of thinking of it. The WTPack exe is like the CIA operator's Steam Deck for the whole AngelFire system. And it was a limited and more fragile preloader, and it was only good for loading the base payload of AngelFire software. For example, everything has to be in a single folder, and WTPack requires admin privileges, so it wasn't as robust or diverse as you might have expected, or as some of the other programs that make up the framework were allowed to do. Let's see, and then this also. So Solar Time, it modified the boot partition sector to initiate kernel code execution during system boot. We already went over that. And it served as the initial entry point that integrates the rest of AngelFire components into the system during setup. Then you have Wolfreak, which was a self-loading kernel driver that handles kernel level tasks and starts user mode applications or other drivers. This bridges the kernel and user mod. Jesus Christ, it would help if I could talk. Bridges the kernel and user mode operations, enabling seamless integration of the entire system. Then you have Magic Wand, executes and implants and user applications invisibly while relying on Wolfreak for kernel support. Then you have BadMFs. It acted as the secure storage backend for all the drivers and files required by Wolfreak and Magic Wand. Then you have the window transitory file system, which allowed operators to manage and deploy the system covertly without permanent modifications. Then you have WTPack. It acts as the deployment engine, ensuring components like BadMF, Solar Time, and Wolfreak are configured and operational. And then you have the AngelFire installer, which is stp.exe, and it was just like a Wumbo one and done tool. So that way they didn't have to sit around and dick around trying to execute all these different components. They could just get stp.exe covertly onto the computer in one way or the other, double click it, run it, and everything's done. So AngelFire SCP is for the install and installation, while WTPack prepares the necessary transitory files and configuration. That's your initialization, installation, whatever the hell you want to call it. Then you have the system integration, and that's done by Wolf Creek and Solar Time. And then you have the covert file storage that's done by Bad MFs. You have the actual application execution, which is handled by Magic Wand. Then you have the temporary operations, which are handled by the Windows transitory system, and everything else is basically about stealth access, stealth modification, and cleanup. So you have Solar Time that sets the stage for the persistence. Wolf Creek manages kernel level control and system integrations. Magic Wand handles stealthy execution of user applications. Bad MFs provides covert and secure storage. And then the Windows transitory file system supports temporary operations, while WTPack and the installer ensure streamlined deployment and management for, I don't know. I honestly don't understand why the fuck they had that part. Like, as far as I can tell, based on this, it's the most rudimentary way they could have handled all this, and it fucking scares me. And it doesn't scare me because the CIA was accessing people's computers and they were doing all this covert spying. We should know that by now. Between Julian Assange and what's his name, Snowden, that there is no excuse for people not to understand that the government is just firmly planted in your ass. What's terrifying to me about this is it's stupid. The way they have done this is not the most, it's just not the way to do it effectively. And so this is either just a public demonstration of a stupid idea they had because it would be enough for people to chew on, or they were not that good at this back then, and they needed to dumb it down for monkeys, which is why they had WTPack and this fucking unified installer instead of just having these guys fire off a few command line things and upload it remotely and securely through some sort of FTP connection, which I'm hoping that's how they got these main installers on there. But I mean, there is no reason that someone couldn't. There's just a million different ways they could have done all this, and this seems like it was designed for people that weren't as tech savvy as they should be for the jobs they were doing, to go in, set a bunch of parameters, load something once very quickly remotely, and then dip out and come back and get that information at a later date. And I got no complaints with conceptually that setup, but just from a coder's perspective, man, that there is something wildly alarming about the lack of cleverness deployed in such a invasive tool. And especially if what they were going for was covert operation, it feels like there was a million times better way to handle all this. But this is also 15 years ago, and who knows if the groundwork was even laid for some of the things that I think would have made this a million times better. But yeah, that was Project AngelFire, and it was an invasive, steaming pile of crap. Let's see. So some known issues were it would overview of. Well, here's an overview of the operational challenges. So it was really dependent on operating system, and so if the person had a really outdated operating system, if they were using Windows 10, that kind of thing, it crapped itself. It wouldn't work. It had a laundry list of known issues. So basically, the biggest problem with it was that it would only work on 32-bit platforms. And as soon as you started to introduce 64-bit systems into the mix, it just kind of went tits up. And it would work, but it would work very poorly, which is kind of funny considering how it seems like they made it for an operator on a lowest common denominator. And then the real issue to me is that if the government bodies have this software and it's not a far reach to assume that criminal organizations could get it, or were getting it. Especially now that some of the mafias out there are worth billions of dollars. Like, if these tools are there, they're gonna get their hands on them eventually. And if they can't get their hands on them, but they know about them, it's not that goddamn hard to just pay a bunch of coders to make some shit like this. And so the fact that the government did it and this was out in the zeitgeist means that there was more than just them that had it. Uh, it's also just it's such a clumsy way to leave this whole thing. Like it only took one bad operator fucking things up to leave a snail trail that could, in theory, just leave someone's computer open or leave a whole bunch of data on their computer that a hacker could grab that otherwise wouldn't have been available, like all the key logs and that kind of stuff. Essentially, if anyone fucked up in the process, which based on the way it was designed, having some sort of easy preloader setup, but then all these complications on the back end, I don't see how this didn't happen at least a few times. It's like a gold pot for hackers. Now all of a sudden, here's all this data on a high target or high, high. The fuck is the word I'm looking for? A critical target. Someone that's got a reason for people to want to look at their shit. And it's just there. It's there and out there, ready. And so, in conclusion, there was, of course, no way of knowing whether you were being watched at any given moment, how often, what system, and thought police plugged in on any individual wire was guesswork. It was even conceivable that they watched everybody all the time. That was in Orwell 1984, and fuck, that was only about a decade before I'm sure they actually started to deploy shit like this, and about 2.5 decades before AngelFire was released. 'Cause we're amateurs.